Yo, yo, yo.
What's
going
up?
on? We're back for another episode of Wedding Business Growth.
That's right. And
What's
it's
happening?
the A team here. We left David behind. We kicked him to Chicago.
Yeah, David's living the life up in Chicago, so it's me and Frank tonight, but we've got a great episode lined up for y'all. Thanks for being on with us. For those of you that are coming on in, welcome. We got a great show tonight. Frank, what's been going on, man?
Work. And I had a wedding this past weekend that was one of those weddings that, like, when you get done, you're just like, damn, that was a perfect wedding. Like, it couldn't have went any better from just a holistic view, but then also just like the dance floor was like, especially with dance floors being kind of awkward still sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Man, dance floor just like 100 people deep, like most of the night. And just like raging.
I love it.
Even when I called last call, which I hate calling last call, but even when I called last call, it was still like 50, 60 people on the dance floor because they were just like, you know what? We got enough drinks. We don't need any more. We're out here killing it. So, yeah, it was a good time. And then I got 2 this weekend, so we'll see how it goes.
Oh, are you back to back?
Yeah, Friday, Saturday. Yep.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, dude, I'm so stoked for you that you're getting busy again. I think that's fantastic. I think it's a good sign, and the fact that people are willing to like start dancing again and have fun and kind of no limits. Like I love to see it. So awesome
yeah. How about you? What you been up to?
Same stuff. Just weddings. Had a kind of like a elopement type of deal in Georgia this weekend, and then the days are a blur. A lot of stuff. David and I are like involved in the in our MPI chapter here in Northeast Florida, so we had some good stuff going on there. So I was just working on some video for them, but yeah, that's all that's going on. We got a wedding this weekend as well, and yeah, good stuff all around.
Sweet,
cool, man.
Yeah, man, it's nice to see. I mean, I know you guys have been working the whole time, basically with a short break there. Yeah. But it's definitely nice to see it like kind of happening everywhere now.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
I was super jealous for a long time.
We felt terrible. We felt really bad. I didn't like talking about the fact that we were doing weddings and stuff like that. I was like, man, we should probably not even bring it up. But I'm so glad to see places, like Virginia, like the Northeast, really getting back into full capacity, full swing. So Yeah, it's awesome. Awesome.
I think once New York decided to start letting 30, 40,000 people pack themselves into baseball stadiums, it was pretty much a sign like, I guess 150, 250 people weddings, it's time to go again.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of, time to get going again, in terms of, lead management and, automation, stuff like that. We've got another awesome guest tonight. I'm going to save the bio just because, I think there's a lot of good stuff that we could talk about, some talking points. So we'll just bring her on. Michele Dye from Dyenamic Media, small business owner, helping entrepreneurs and businesses grow through profitable online marketing strategies. That's kind of what we're talking about tonight. This is the kind of stuff that I nerd out on, and I absolutely love to geek out on it. So this is going to be a great episode. I'm super excited. I know you are, Frank. Let's go ahead and bring her on. Michele, thank you so much for being on with us. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on. Man, there's so much to unpack in terms of what you do, but maybe let's start with just a little bit of background about you, your company. I love the name, by the way. Dyenamic Media is just such an awesome play onto your name. Is so cool. So tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. So, over probably throughout my entire career, I've always had some freelancing going on in the background because I have a lot of creative interests. So I've done a lot of graphic design and photography over the years. I even did a little wedding photography back in the day. And awesome. So yeah, a few years ago, I decided I wanted to take my career in a whole different direction. And I quit my job after working 18 years in higher education in communications and marketing, and started consulting for some small businesses, and decided to go back to school and get my master's in executive leadership. And I thought I would go back to, a traditional workplace setting, but I loved working with the small businesses, and I really got into career coaching as well. So I kind of straddle, two different worlds through Dyenamic Media, but it's been, such an enjoyable experience, especially helping small businesses kind of make their way through the pandemic. So, a hair salon, for example, working with them, helping them craft their COVID messaging through email, platform, taking social media and their email, database that we built up, and offering a product for them that they could buy when the salon was closed for 8 weeks. That was huge. And so I loved being able to do those type of things within the last year.
That's a huge pivot too. I mean, from going into a service-based type of, business to having to literally, how can I continue to keep money coming through the door without having to do my bread and butter, activity? That absolutely incredible. And I saw that you were a photographer a little bit for the University of Florida. Tim Tebow era. That's super cool.
I have some great pictures of him hanging in my hallway. So of him playing. Awesome. So yeah, it was really fun. I don't know what it would be like to do that now that I'm older, because it's about, 110 degrees on the field, and you're basically carrying about 20 pounds of equipment, and you're running up and down the field. It was funny because the main photographer that I worked with, he was about 70 years old, and I was helping him out a lot. And I was just like, Jim, how do you do this? I'm like dying, running and carrying all this gear. And, but it was really great. It was super fun to learn from him and have the chance to, work for my alma mater in that capacity. So.
Yeah, that is really awesome. And now helping the businesses now with that kind of, you said, a lot of creative visual stuff, that's super cool for sure. So let's get into the thing that is most interesting to me that just absolutely caught my attention for this week, which was generating leads 24/7 on Autopilot. Who doesn't want that? That sounds absolutely amazing. So maybe we could talk a little bit about that and just kind of dive into it a little bit.
Sure. So the great benefit to, having some sort of automated system set up for your business is you don't have to be the one on the phone all the time, trying to talk to prospective clients or try to sift through like who's going to be a really good fit for your business, whether you have standardized questions you like to ask them, even your availability for, when you're available for having a wedding. So I think generating some sort of automated system, kind of creating that, will really help the workflows in your business. It'll free up some of your time that you can spend in other parts of your business. So there's a lot of ways that you can get started on this, but your website being one of them. So you should have some sort of call to action or CTA on your website that you're getting them to do the primary thing you want them to do, whether it's scheduling a consultation, whether it's joining your email list, or, if you have any sort of webinar or other platform that you use to help drum up leads, that's what you want to direct them to on your website. You can also do the same thing on your social media and have, a specific call to action of what the main thing that you want that your potential customers to do. So, for a photographer, it might be, schedule a consultation. It might be to take a quiz, and we're going to talk about quiz funnels today too. And so really think about, what you want them to do, and then call them to action on your website, on your social media, that you can start an automated process.
Yeah. The call to action was the biggest, change for me when I went to, book now versus like, where do you want the end user? Where do you want to see them go? Like, what do you want them to do? And kind of push them in the direction of that funnel. So, I know that can be also done with, emails and social media and stuff like that. You mentioned quiz, that I personally, just quick, little anecdote. I was on a local venue's website and they had a quiz, and the engagement that I felt and experienced through that quiz was incredible. I'm not booking a wedding. Like I'm not getting married right now, but it was but the engagement and just the information that you're able to kind of pull from that is incredible. So let's talk about the quiz funnel and what that looks like.
So if you're kind of wondering, well, what's a quiz funnel? What are they talking about? So pretty much everybody knows about BuzzFeed, right? And BuzzFeed has those popular quizzes. What's interesting about their stats is they have a 96% completion rate for people who start a BuzzFeed quiz. So to your point about talking about engagement, like that's huge. Like people are spending time taking the quiz. And, BuzzFeed's one of their most popular quizzes was, I believe, which city should you live in? Okay. And that had, I think, over 22 million takers.
Jeez.
And so when you do quizzes in a strategic way, you can capture not only leads, but you can capture really important data about your potential customers that then you can customize your messaging to them based on the answers that they give you. And so it can really help, increase conversion rates for your different products and services.
Yeah. I mean, just the way, in terms of the engagement and stuff, like the 96% statistic honestly doesn't shock me, because I felt that in myself. I was like, man, I took the entire quiz for something that I'm probably not doing for a bit. And it was great. And like you said, so now you have an email address, you have some sort of way to contact them. Like what happens after that? So they've taken the quiz. Where do we go from after, maybe a quiz, we take the quiz?
Sure. So they take the quiz, and then you want to capture their information. So the safest thing to do is just capture their email address. If you want to experiment and try to get a second piece of information from them, like their first name, I encourage you to do so. For my email marketing, I really like to address people by their name. So I take a little bit of a risk and add in a second piece of information for them to give me. So when that happens on the back end, it triggers an automated email workflow that I have set up, one where they get their personalized results. So and we can dive into this a little bit more on the quiz, but essentially when you're creating a quiz, you're going to end up putting people in different buckets. So we can do like, let's say you're a hairstylist and you create a quiz, like which wedding hairstyle is right for you. You would then formulate your answers to drop into different buckets where maybe they want an updo, or maybe they want a flower crown, or however you want to categorize the people. And then, so what happens after they submit, the backend system is automatically tagging them. Oh, well, they want an updo. So your report that you give them of their results is going to be built around, them wanting an updo. And then you can feature like customized information about your services. And you can have a whole image gallery of all the different updo hairstyles you've done. You can have testimonials from those types of brides, singing your praises. So it allows for you to have really great customization, but it takes a lot of strategic planning when you're doing a quiz and to get the most out of it. Like you could create a quiz and it could be really fun to take and you may get a lot of leads, but if you're not able to kind of put in really important information that might change how you market and communicate to them, then you end up with a bunch of people that may or may not be the right fit on your email list. So it's best to kind of take a strategic approach to building a quiz funnel.
I love that because I guess I never thought about it, right? I never realized that and of course, like the BuzzFeed ones, right? Like they're just kicking out your favorite, this is your Disney character. I was Aladdin, right? Like that kind of thing. But I love the idea of having it take them down a different path completely. When I thought about, and I don't have one, but when I have thought about in the past doing a quiz, I've thought, okay, I'm just going to source some information through some really creative questions that allow this potential couple client to feel like I want to know about them. And this is their opportunity to tell me about them through some key things. But I never would have thought about, okay, well, but if they answer it like this, I'm going to send them down a different email path altogether than if they would have answered it like this. If they want a micro wedding with just social hour, then this is what their emails need to be catered as, versus if this couple wants a club vibe, then I'm going to send them down this path. So that's really creative. Well, first of all, it's creative, but it's also really effective because then it lets you target those people even better. So I love that.
Yeah. And that's why conversions can, work so well with a quiz funnel when you do get strategic like that, because you're learning more about them. And then you can use that information to help them and to help guide them through their decision making, because I'm sure a lot of people feel very overwhelmed when it comes to figuring out, what their wedding looks like and who they're going to hire. And anything that you do that will, one, make you stand out, but two, serves them, through that customer acquisition process, it's just going to help you be more successful.
100%. One thing that I wanted to ask was, how do you create I know you said you have to be very strategic about it, but where's a good starting point for maybe someone like a DJ or a photographer or who wants to start, incorporating quizzes? Where do you start to kind of like, how do I generate these questions? Like the hair stuff was, I think, beautifully, like that's perfect. Like, what's hairstyle is going to work best for you. How is someone like a DJ or photographer or planner? How do you start to strategically posit those questions?
Sure. So I think a big thing is thinking about your ideal customer. What are their pain points? I'm sure you've gotten a lot of the same questions over and over and over again in your business. And so thinking about what are those questions, and are there any commonalities where maybe you can start putting your ideal customers into different buckets based on, like, for a photographer, maybe a lot of it has to do with the venue, and maybe you prefer, as a photographer, doing really intimate outdoor weddings. So you might want to design a quiz funnel that focuses on attracting, those types of brides. So that can just be a good starter of just really thinking about, your ideal client. How can you narrow in on that focus? Like, how can that quiz help you identify them and serve them? And I think that's a great starting point, especially when you factor in what are those frequently asked questions, because some of them might make good quiz questions or good questions to help you diagnose, those particular challenges that they have.
100%. Yeah, no, I love that. That's a really good point. Frank, do you want to add anything?
Well, I was just going to ask. So, like, because when you said hairstylist, you used a perfect example, right? You said like an updo, like,
right.
So at the end of that thing, or at the end of the quiz, their answer was, "Here's this email that you got from me. Your perfect hairstyle is an updo with pictures and so forth."
Mm-hmm.
So, like, just as an example, for like a coordinator, right? What would be like one of those examples of like, this is the perfect thing for you based on these quiz questions? Like, what would be an example for like another vendor lane?
Sure. So I think about, for a wedding planner or coordinator, like understanding like the bride's style and, helping identify, are they want something really glam or romantic or, very like rustic. Like you can think thematically, I think, by the types of brides that you've had, and design a quiz that kind of will help them identify their style. Because I can imagine I experienced this a little bit when I did some wedding photography for a brief moment in time. And, they come with their Pinterest clippings or their Pinterest boards. And that is exactly what they want. But when you look at it from like a thematic perspective that a wedding coordinator or planner is going to look at, like all that stuff does not go together. Like,
right.
Their flowers might like be very different from their dress or their hairstyle or the venue, and none of it goes. Like they want this big princess ball gown and then they want to get married on a farm. Like it just doesn't always go. And so I think you can work on helping uncover, more information about themselves that they're not realizing. And so that's really the power of quizzes. When you think about why people want to take them, they're wanting to learn something about themselves. And the more you can help them, understand themselves better, especially if it's in a positive light, the more likely they're going to share it on social media. When you think about all of the BuzzFeed ones that get shared on social, it's because BuzzFeed told them something really positive and cool about themselves that they want to tell everyone else. And so that's how you get quizzes to go viral too. So it's definitely adaptable to just about any industry. It just takes a little creative thinking.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you work with somebody outside of your business, like a marketing consultant, for example, they can help get kind of the wheels turning in your head about how you can apply it.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
I love the share. That's another thing I wouldn't have thought about, like in our lane, right? Like BuzzFeed, I absolutely put that I was Joey from Friends on my Facebook page years ago when I took that quiz, right? But I would have never thought about putting that feature in a quiz for somebody seeking wedding services, like a couple would. And then to think, oh, if they share that just opens your funnel a little wider initially. So it just kind of creates like that, that social outreach, and you didn't even pay a dime for it. You just took that bride or grooms or whoever took the quiz. You just took their audience or their group of friends and family, and now you're marketed to them.
Yes. So it's great for organic reach.
Right.
That is so slick.
It is slick. And also it's like now whose business are they talking about? Where did the quiz come from? Oh, it came from here. Oh, let me check this out. Oh, and then, obviously from there, it doesn't just stop at the quiz. After that, we have, some sort of funnel that you're taking them down. Right. And then from there, I assume they're getting some sort of additional information, right? What does that look like?
Okay, so your report can cover, a little bit about like how you classified them, like their results. Talk about the result. You could talk about like common pitfalls and challenges with the result. So going back to the hairstyle, maybe a common challenge is the length of your hair, or what the length of your hair is going to be by your wedding day, like figuring that out and addressing it. And then you want to kind of get to the point where you are opening another loop for them. So they call it story loops in marketing. And so you've opened this loop with them taking the quiz, and now they know their type. And then you want to open another loop for them to learn more. And then you get to decide, like, what is that next step? Like, after they've got their results, what do you want them to do? So I can say for some of the quizzes that I've built for my company, sometimes the next step is I want them to buy an online course, or I want them to participate in a free webinar, or I want them to do a paid challenge. Like it varies. And so for you, it might be you want them to book a consultation, or you might have some sort of package available that people will feel comfortable enough buying from you because they went on this journey and they saw the value that you delivered. All of marketing is an experiment, and you do have to experiment to see what works best for your audience. And I encourage you to just start. Like, it sounds like can be an overwhelming process, but the important thing is to just start and experiment, and don't sit and wait for it to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And you want to be able to get feedback. And you'll know that by looking at your numbers, and then you can start to figure out where you want to make adjustments.
Yeah, I love how you kind of just brought up trial and error, because I think in business, that's pretty much business in general, is like try, test, prove or disprove, and then go feedback and go try to, figure something else out. So no, that's awesome. And I think a lot of people need to hear that, especially like just a quick tangent for the mindset stuff. I mean, it's so easy to get caught up in like, oh, this isn't perfect yet, and you'd be surprised how many times something comes out and you're like, oh, it actually ended up working. Like I didn't even like, all the worrying was like for nothing. So, but yeah, you will definitely have to test and repeat, that's the name of the game. But so in terms of now we're moving, even farther down into the funnel, I guess what's the next like? I mean, obviously you bring them to, some sort of either consultation or a product. What else are you? I guess you could almost try to establish yourself as an expert of some sort in your field, right? With some of the stuff, with some of those marketing products, right?
Yeah. So I think for anybody in the wedding industry to adapt, a quiz funnel, you've got them their report, you've offered them that call to action, that next step that you want to take. Then you can focus on further building that relationship and getting the conversion. And a lot of the way you can do that is nurture them through an email sequence that you set up. And now that you know a little bit more about them specifically, and you've kind of broken down things into buckets, each bucket has its own email sequence, and you can nurture them. And so you can do a couple, you can have like maybe 3 different emails that go out sporadically, like you have them spread out over a time period where you're serving. And as you're serving, you're speaking into that authority that you brought up. And then you go into an offer again until you get them converted. And, if they, you can offer a free consultation or whatever it is that fits with your business model and your business processes that you have for, onboarding potential clients. You can build that into your email sequence. And, if you're not already using any sort of automated email system, there's plenty out there that are affordable that I recommend. One being ConvertKit. And I'm able to build automatic sequences. I'm able to tag subscribers based on their quiz answers. And then they can get all of the appropriate information. And I don't have to lift a finger when all this is happening. Like this is all done automatically. I'm not even thinking about it. I just, check and make sure the tech is still working. But I mean, that's all that I have to do. And that's a really good thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know that it can be it can get really overwhelming very quickly. So especially when you're first starting out, and that's why, I'm always like looking for resources, like you, for helping with some of that stuff. Because honestly, when you start breaking down quizzes, okay, how do I create the quiz, and how do I, create the email chain, and how do I get them to like interact with each other, and how do I even look at numbers in the data? You mentioned data earlier. How do I even look at the data? So there's a lot of stuff that can get super overwhelming. But yeah.
And I mean, I'm happy if anybody wants to DM me. I can try to put together like a tools sheet with like some different links to some of the things that I use. But one of the things that I do for, quiz funnel clients is I have the software. I have like enterprise level software for quizzes where I can build and host the quiz for businesses. I can generate data reports for them. I can set it up to communicate with their email service provider, like a ConvertKit or MailChimp or, all the different ones that are out there. So there's resources out like that exist. If you didn't want to get all that fancy, you could probably build something in Google Forms, and it might not have all the automated and connections with your email service provider. But if you wanted to experiment that way, before committing like a huge chunk of your time and money to building something, that's a great way to test. And then it's free.
That's a really good point. Yeah. I've just noticed that, again, not to sound like a broken record, but the quizzes are just like, they really are like, even before, this conversation, I was like, man, like the quiz, like I want to put a quiz on my website and stuff like that, because it is the engagement, and then maybe, I don't know if you can speak on this, but I know that the engagement helps with your SEO on your website. Yes, for sure, right?
Definitely, it helps with your SEO. It helps. Let's talk social for a second, and why this is such a benefit. So you probably noticed that your business pages on Facebook and your profiles on Instagram don't get maybe a ton of engagement as it used to several years ago, because Facebook and Instagram, they want you to buy what? They want you to buy ads.
Yeah.
And organic traffic is still possible, and it is very helpful for even when you do a paid ad spend. So this was something that I learned fairly recently from a Facebook expert. Her name's Rachel Miller, and she's with Moolah Marketing. And I always recommend her to everyone because she does a great job with growing organic audiences. And she shared something really interesting where your organic content on your Facebook page is important for your ad success rate. And the reason why is that helps signal to Facebook that who they should be showing your ads to, instead of them just having to try to figure it out. So they do rely on your traffic and your engagement on your, Facebook business page from an organic perspective to help your paid ads be more successful. So quizzes can help with that. And even creating an ad for quizzes, your cost per click is going to be much lower usually, because like you're mentioning, it is just an engaging piece of content. Like people can't resist learning a little bit more about themselves, and they click on it and they take the quiz. So where maybe you have some other lead magnets where your cost per click is $3, $6, $10, depending on what it is, you can get traffic to your quizzes for less than 30 cents. I mean, I've gotten some as low as 10 cents or 8 cents.
Wow.
So it can be really powerful. So we've talked a little bit about testing today too. It's all about testing. So right now I'm testing a new quiz question for my own business. And last I checked, I was getting almost 12% click-through rates, which was pretty good. And I believe my cost per click was around 14 cents. And right now it's still at the beginning phase of testing, like Facebook's still learning. So you might have noticed that on your Facebook ads platform, the status of your ad, it's kind of like in review. And then when it's active, it's in a learning phase, and Facebook's trying to learn who to deliver this ad to. And so you can spend $1 a day, $2 a day, $3 a day for like 4 or 5 days and test out your quiz question before you even develop the whole thing, and just to see if people want to take it.
Right.
And that's a great way to save you a lot of time and money.
I love it. And I think that, so, I mean, this is a super kind of basic question, but you're essentially linking in a Facebook ad, you'd be linking your, wherever the quiz is, you just say, hey, here's our quiz question. And then you just run an ad on that.
Yeah. So
okay. Yep.
What my page ends up looking like when I'm testing a quiz question, I'll mention something. We're developing a quiz to help you with X. And then I'll have one question in there that they may or may not answer. When it comes to, wedding planning, what is your biggest challenge? And it could be, a very open-ended question like that. They may or may not answer it. They're probably not going to, but they clicked on your ad, they loaded your page that related to your quiz that you're building. And in this ad copy, you tell them that it's you're building a quiz. So they're not expecting to take a quiz right then and there, but they're interested enough to click on it. And that signals to you you're on the right track. And then if nobody clicks on it, you scrap that question, you come up with another one, and you didn't waste, all this time and money building a quiz.
Right. That's huge on testing, and not, because you could think you got it, and then you go put thousands of dollars into it, and you're like, oh wow, this didn't work.
This didn't work. Exactly.
Frank, I know you wanted to chime in.
I was just going to say, I mean, we you've touched on, right, like quiz funnels, right? But then you also just started to talk a little bit about lead magnets, right? So of course, the quiz being one of those. Give us a couple other examples of lead magnets that you're finding work really well in the wedding industry.
So I can tell you what people don't want. They don't want another newsletter. Okay. So, and I want you to really think about your email list is one of your most valuable assets in your business. So, that how the saying goes, don't build on borrowed land. Well, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of that's borrowed. Your account at any point in time could get shut down. Your ads account for advertising on Facebook could get temporarily shut down. Yeah. I've had ads denied saying I was discriminating against job seekers for an ad I developed when I wasn't posting a job. I was trying to help people with their resume. So it's crazy town in social media. And so your email list, surprisingly, you're going to make more money from your email list than you will from social media ads. When you think about the cost of ads, how it's been rapidly rising the last couple of years, and I think it's only going to continue to escalate, especially with all the changes happening on social media advertising. You want to really build a healthy email list. And so lead magnets are kind of like, that's the term we use in the marketing industry. And essentially, you're creating something that somebody is going to give you their email address in exchange for that something. Mm-hmm. So you got to make it good. And people aren't necessarily going to want to give up their email address all the time, or they'll give you like their AOL account. And, it's an email that they don't check as much, but you want to be able to make it so enticing where they're going to want to hear from you, and they're going to give you that good email address. And so there's tons of different things that you could do for the wedding industry. In fact, I typed up a little list, and I'll give you a couple ideas. So for different parts of the wedding industry. So your lead magnet could be something like a wedding budget calculator. who wouldn't want that as like a potential bride of figuring out like, well, what am I even going to be able to afford? And you could do a wedding planning checklist. Now, this doesn't have to replace you as a vendor, but it's a guideline. It gives them things to think about, where maybe it's information that you wish your brides knew, like on day one working with you. Maybe that's your checklist. You could do a webinar for like newly engaged brides to be. So, through Facebook ads, you can target people who got engaged recently and maybe that live in your area. And maybe there's some sort of webinar that you want to host. And maybe you've had success with doing that. That's a lead magnet. You could do another for like if you were a DJ. You can have a little PDF lead magnet. It's like the top 20 songs that you should play at your wedding. You could do wedding trends for like this next year, where you take some of your industry knowledge and you package it together in a nice PDF, like a bride that's maybe feeling really overwhelmed and she doesn't know what she wants to do. She'd give her email for that. So it doesn't have to be over the top complicated. You just have to get a little bit creative, and it goes back to you really knowing your target client, like your most ideal client that you could have, and then positioning yourself as that expert, that guide that's giving them valuable information that starts to build that know, like, and trust factor with you. That's what makes a great lead magnet. That's going to give them, the confidence to give you their email address and maybe even their name. So then you can start communicating with them via email. And it's definitely a powerful way. I've built my email list through lead magnets, through webinars, through PDF downloads, through quizzes. And you just have to find like what works for you.
You're blowing my mind right now. That's all I'll say. I think the biggest takeaway for me in what you were saying about, don't build on, borrowed land. I mean, that's huge because, we were kind of talking before the show, the future in the social media advertisements, especially with, we were talking Facebook's, new getting cracked down on privacy and, selling user data, that's going to change the landscape for sure. And like, where do you fall back on there from there? I mean, I hope you have an email list, but I was just loving listening to what you were saying about, making sure that it aligns with your ideal client and you're giving out valuable information. I know for myself, and other videographers out there, why even hire a videographer? That could be a really great one,
Absolutely.
And then how that all ties back into the funnel, it's awesome information there for sure.
Yeah. And even, what you mentioned, Nick, you could think about like for videographers or even photographers, like what are the questions that you should ask like as a bride to your vendors before you hire them? I'm sure you've had people come through to your business because they had a bad experience somewhere else and they had to lose that deposit or whatever, break that relationship and find somebody new. Yeah. And so again, that's positioning you as the authority, the expert, the guide. Here are the questions that you should ask. And then you already know that you can answer all of them. Right. But your competitors might not be able to do that.
Yeah. And, I know we talk about this on the show all the time. This is the first time most couples have ever gone through the process of, hiring a professional photographer or videographer or planner. They may not even know. A lot of the times I get people that don't even know the questions to ask, right? Like they're like, oh, where do I go? So that's to your point. I mean, that's perfect.
A great lead magnet to do.
For sure. 100%. So from there, I mean, then I guess you're going into your email command chain, which we kind of like previously discussed, and
kind of however you want to follow up with prospective clients. If you like more of a personal touch, you can try to get more contact information with them or get them on a Zoom call. It doesn't have to all be automated. You just have to build a system that works for you and your business. For sure.
So one thing that we were talking about in the beginning of the show was how, I'm not sure if we were talking about on or off, but we were discussing, hair salons. Yeah, we were talking about it on the show. Hair salons and how they, you were able to kind of, during COVID, there was like a very low period where you had to, help them develop something to continue to keep money coming through the door, right? We were talking about, developing a product. Maybe we can talk about how we diversify your revenue with a informational product. And this can be done through like a membership of some kind, or how does that work?
Sure. There's a lot of different avenues that you can go through. When you think about all of your knowledge that you have and your skill set and your kind of uniqueness, how could you sell that information to help other people, whether they're in their business or, whether it's serving your customers and giving them a VIP experience? There's all different sorts of things that you could do. So for when you think about like a course or some sort of online training, it could be, if you're a wedding photographer, you could maybe do an online course for amateur photographers. They don't necessarily have to be in the wedding space. So that could be something that you're doing. I know a photographer that's developing an online course specifically targeted at moms, teaching them how to use their DSLR camera to take pictures of their kids every day instead of just using their camera phone. So there's that way. And then that can give you, it's just another revenue streams, right? So something happens again and the world gets shut down, or even if just business, like certain industries, especially wedding industry, you'll have your peak seasons. And then you have seasons that are a little bit slower. Well, what if you had some sort of digital product that's going to give you some consistent income where you can, so they'll call it evergreen, when there's really no time frame attached. It just kind of runs in the background. So, I have different webinars that I do, or even different trainings that are evergreen that people can sign up for at any time. I don't have to physically be there. It just kind of runs itself. And then I wake up and I have a payment from Stripe and I'm like, hey. So awesome. That's a great thing. And then memberships are great when you can figure out, what pain point do you want to address? And memberships then become a reoccurring monthly revenue for you. So I think about there are brides out there, they want to do it themselves, and that's fine. And so they may not hire a wedding planner, but when you think of think of a wedding planner and all of the vendor contacts that they have. Well, what if you created a membership for the DIY bride where you're pulling together resources for them? You can scale this offer. Now you're not limited to X number of weddings that you can only take a year. Now you could potentially help thousands of brides every month in kind of this community membership where you can answer questions, you can direct them to resources, you can bring on guest speakers that are other vendors like florists and DJs and videographers and all different things. And what you end up building is a community that has, a high perceived value. They're getting a chance to talk with other brides that that have decided to plan their own wedding. And then, guess what? If there's a process or piece that they don't want to do, here's your a la carte, options of upgrades that you can have. Or maybe you offer discounts with some, other vendors. You have some sort of relationship with them. And then everybody wins. And now you've got another revenue stream. When you think of how long a wedding takes to plan, especially if they're doing it themselves, you could potentially have this person for like a year and a half, 2 years in your membership. And who knows where they'll want to go next. Like I've, met other people who have created memberships like this, of like a kind of a membership for brides who are planning their weddings. And they loved the community so much that even after they had their wedding, they still stuck around. And then they served the community and told them like, well, this is what I did. And here are my tips. And I mean, it's it's endless, the possibilities. You just have to experiment. You have to really know like what people want. And you don't have to start off with like this super big thing at the beginning. I can speak, from my own experience. Right now, I'm building a membership, and I'm in the beginning stage where I got an idea for it. I've got the general framework. I had an initial offer. I had someone buy, and then we're just starting to build it, little by little, testing things out. And so the next time I launch this thing, I'm going to have my messaging is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to have results that I can share that I was able to help members achieve. And so it's just baby steps. I think any of the things that we've talked about tonight, just understanding that it takes time. There's really no overnight success when you're doing any of this. I feel like it's such an anomaly when you have something that goes viral. And it takes a lot of patience and testing and knowing when to, pivot in your tactics.
Well, yeah, I love that. And I love that, like, where your mindset on that. I think that's really, really fantastic. I mean, like TikTok is like viral central, right? Everyone's just like living for like the one post that blows up. And it's crazy. TikTok will actually give that to them, like a little fee, like, oh, like, like let you kind of like almost like controlled go viral. So you can experience, I guess, like the rush of feeling that and continue to create. I don't know, but that's a rabbit hole. But no, I absolutely love your mindset on that. It everything, whether you're starting the business, in what you enjoyed doing, or your marketing strategy, whatever it is, it absolutely takes time. And the greatest, thing that I can bring to the table in regards to that is, like, don't necessarily be upset with where you're at. Like, just enjoy the process of kind of going through it. Like, you're eventually, if you continue to work every single day and, test and, be strategic, you'll get to exactly where you want to go. But don't put yourself in a prison because you're not where you want to be right now.
Yeah. And everything takes longer than you thought.
For sure.
I can definitely speak to that from my own experience of, when I started a new segment of my business last year in career coaching, it grew a lot slower than I thought it was going to. Like, building your email list, it takes time. It takes time to develop your offerings, to figure out like what attracts people, and then what attracts paying clients. I'm sure everybody experiences that, because people just think, oh, I'll just go on Google, I'll figure it out there. Like, I don't need a wedding planner. I'll just go to Google and get a checklist from somewhere and have some friends do it. Or the amount of people that would come to me for photos after they had like hired a friend to shoot their wedding. Like, do you know how many reshoots I did? Like, people got all dressed up again. Wow. We went back to the venue and we took some, of like the nice like portrait style stuff, because they just had a friend do it. So yeah, it's all an adventure when you're a business owner. So
it absolutely is an adventure for sure. Frank, did you want to add anything, or?
Oh no, I mean, no, I was just gonna make a joke about all the family members that can do everything that a wedding professional can do. You know what I mean? You got the people with the cameras that are diving down in the aisle during the ceremony. You know what I mean? You've got the people who come over to the DJ and like eye their equipment down, and oh, you use Pioneer, huh? And just all those conversations. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I know one of every so many of them actually do know what they're talking about, but a lot of them just try to jump in. And so those are always a fun conversation with clients when they have that, oh, we've got a so-and-so who can do this too. It's always kind of, but what's really cool is through the quiz and through the lead magnet and through even the membership style offerings, you can start to explain what it is that makes a wedding professional different than your aunt who has done the last 2 family weddings as a coordinator.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really being able to communicate your value and getting them to see your value and understanding the importance of it. And like you said, you can start to establish that through, your quizzes or your marketing materials, or even just really honing in on your conversations that you have with prospective clients and listening to them and paying attention to objections that come up in conversations. Write those down, because then you can start developing, social content. That's, some of your organic content that you have for social media that addresses those specific objections. And that's just going to help, elevate you and your business.
Man, that is awesome. I know we're coming up on the hour here, so I want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time. But if anyone's listening that has questions, feel free to drop them before we hop off here. Michele, I'm going to add your website, Dyenamic Media. Again, absolutely love the name, to the chat here so everyone can see it. Is there any better way aside from your website that people can reach you at?
If they want to DM me on Instagram, I'm at the Michele Dye. Surprisingly, there was another Michele Dye on Instagram with one L. So I had to add the pretentious sounding the. But also on,
put you in the same category as The Rock, right? Exactly. So you're good.
It's not bad. So on my website, there's a button. You'll see my main call to action is schedule a consultation. So if you want to ask me any questions there too, I'm happy to hop in on Zoom with you. It's a free call, and you can just ask me whatever questions you want.
I love it. And I'm kind of peeping through your website right now. I absolutely love the aesthetic. And then also, boom, first thing I see, eliminate social media overwhelm. I love it. And you're establishing yourself as the expert because, well, yeah.
So one book I can definitely recommend every business owner read is by Donald Miller, and it's called Building a Story Brand. And I love his approach to marketing. It's very simplified, and it's taking the spotlight off of you and putting it on your customer. And then you're just kind of in the background as their guide. And it's all proven, like his marketing philosophy. It's based on the storytelling framework that works for, big movies and books. And I did his workshop last summer. He has like an online workshop where he'll take you through the process of wireframing your website. And so I actually used his process to wireframe, and then I built my own site using Squarespace. And it was a great exercise to go in, because I'm really good at helping other people with their marketing, but I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this when it's like your own business.
Yeah. 100%.
And it's all like up here.
Yep.
It can be like extra challenging working on my own stuff, and I can help somebody else like way faster than I can help myself. So.
Isn't it crazy how that works though? We are our own worst enemies for sure. I was actually having a conversation with someone like I think like last week, and listening to someone else say it was like almost like I honestly was like confirmation. I was like, yeah, okay, I need to move away from this thing. But yeah, it's crazy how, and that's why we always recommend, that's why we started Wedding Business Growth. That's why you're doing what you're doing, is because you have people that are like-minded, that are going to help each other, and that are going to be there to kind of be that support and say like, all right, let's work through this, and let me show you what I'm doing here. So I love it. Absolutely. Frank, if there's nothing else.
Well, I just wanted to offer Michele, is there anything that you have that you're like offering to people right now that you want to pass along while we have a few more moments? Is there any services that you're featuring right now, or just anything that you want people to take a look at if they check out your website?
Sure. So if you want help with either like a lead magnet or developing a quiz, I'll offer 50% off to your audience. I don't have a set price for that on my website, because I tailor every single thing I do to your specific needs, because I don't want to overcharge you, for things you don't need. And I also don't want to like undercharge my time for things that get really complicated. So everything is customizable as far as my quotes go for different projects. But if you're interested in a lead magnet or a quiz, I can offer your audience 50% off. And if you're curious about, some of the tools I use in my business, send me a DM and let me know. And I'll work on putting together like a little one pager, and I'll share the different tools that I use in my business so you can check them out. And it's all for automating your marketing.
As we really appreciate that, Michele, honestly, for doing that for us and our listeners. But it was such a wealth of information tonight, Michele. I can't thank you enough for being on. And I mean, these conversations, I love this stuff because it always opens my eyes to something else that I can be doing. Like, we're never always like, we've never reached our like finality of like in business. Like, there's always something that you can be doing, always learning, always growing. So I can't thank you enough for your time tonight, for sure.
I'm super happy to be here. Happy to come back and talk about anything else you want to talk about, or dive in deeper to some of the topics that we discussed today.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back on. And after I figure out the sales funnel, hopefully we can share some success stories and some leads and good stuff like that. So Michele, I think that'll do it. Frank, if anything else, you maybe want to close us out?
No, you mean you're the closer.
I'm the closer.
You're the closer.
All right,
yeah, you're the closer.
Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And now go do something amazing for the week. Have a great week, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.